Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Dubs Nation. The RNC had their first night of their convention, and it blew away the DNC by a mile. Everything was on point. Speakers were fantastic. The ads in between the speeches were seamless. The transitions were perfect. Trump really displayed why he's the king of reality TV. He had ads cut by John Voight. They had ads cut, and I'm sure Shapiro will be happy about this, displaying the Democratic governors thanking President Trump for getting them everything they needed coronavirus-wise. And you really wouldn't know that based on what the media and Democrats are saying now. They say Trump's got blood on his hands and this is all his fault. But meanwhile, nobody went without the highest level of care, because Trump was able to get Murphy and Cuomo and Newsom everything they needed, despite having shortages and having a lot of obstacles to overcome. So there really is truth to that, and I'm glad that he finally had them cut that ad and they really put it on display. So if you watch the DNC, and I know it's hard to get through, but if you watched it, the messaging was terrible. It was doom and gloom. The country is racist. The economy is falling apart. Meanwhile, they're not even... nobody recognizes that the economy is falling apart because the country is still locked down, thanks in part to Democrat governors. We're still locked down in New York and New Jersey and California and places like that. That's why one of the reasons why the economy is in shambles, but it's coming back. So the DNC messaging was terrible. The production value was garbage. Their speakers were It was bad, as you could imagine. It was not good. The RNC truly was better. Now, they had speakers. All their speakers were very good, but there were definite standouts. Everybody was good with the exception. Kimberly Guilfoyle was like 10 times too extra. She forgot she wasn't speaking to a crowd, and she started screaming. And you know what? I don't blame her. She's dating Trump Jr. I'm sure she's very happy. So that's cool, whatever. But there were definite standouts. Some of the speakers included Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, Steve Scalise, Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan was very good. Nikki Haley was very good. Let's see. There was Guilfoyle, Charlie Kirk from the Turning Point. Then we had the St. Louis couple that was arrested for just protecting their home. They spoke. I'm sure everybody knows them. Then we had Trump Jr. He was an unexpected standout. Sometimes Trump Jr. can, get a little amped up. But last night, he was excellent. So this all the whole night culminated up to Tim Scott and Nikki Haley. They were very good. There were some others, though, that were on the undercard that I thought were actually almost even better. There was Kim Klacik. She's a candidate for Congress in Maryland, in the Baltimore area, and she's an African American woman, and she was very good. She was excellent, actually. She really shoved it down the Democrats' throats, how they just expect the black vote no matter what. Herschel Walker, too. Herschel Walker, who was a close personal friend of Trump, excellent. And I got to tell you something. I have a lot of respect for black conservatives and Republicans, especially, because what do you think was trending on Twitter last night? And I said this in the last video. Twitter is a cesspool of cesspools. The term Uncle Tom was trending on Twitter last night. Because why? Because these people have a different opinion, because they can think for themselves. I mean, what is wrong with them? I swear to God, man. Whatever. But a lot of respect for them, because they get some serious and nasty, nasty rhetoric and hate and racism from their own community and the left. But had you not watched the RNC for yourself, had you not watched, something else that covered it fairly, had you watched, say, CNN, you wouldn't know this. You wouldn't know that the RNC just crushed the DNC, because CNN covered about all of the DNC. I mean, CNN aired 520 minutes of the 583-minute party-produced event, only skipping portions such as closing musical acts and prayers, etc. Yet, the other day you had Brian Stelter saying that he thinks he has a moral obligation, and media outlets have a moral obligation not to air or cut away from the RNC because he just, as he says here, Stelter predicted a truth imbalance on Sunday and claimed it's likely that viewers will hear lies coming fast and furious from the president. So in true CNN fashion, they actually did go ahead and cut away from the RNC last night. Here it is on the Hill. CNN cuts away from Trump address to GOP delegates. Why would they do that? Well, because they want to give you their own message. They want to tell you what Trump said and put their own spin on it, not actually let you listen to what he says and comprehend it for yourself. Typical CNN, that's what they do. Had you not watched it for yourself or watched an outlet that covered it fairly, and you try to get a little snippet from CNN, you would think it was terrible, but it wasn't. They were trying to hide the fact that the first night of the RNC was far better than any nights of the DNC. DNC had poor production value. The messaging was doom and gloom. A lot of falsehoods, a lot of false doom and gloom, a lot of claiming that the economy was because of Trump. The current state of the economy was because of Trump and not the lockdowns, which are perpetrated by many Democrat governors still in New Jersey, New York, California, etc. are locked down. Why? Nobody knows. CNN didn't want you to see that the RNC had good production value, good messaging, hopeful messaging, and a good portrayal of what could come to pass if the Democrats were elected. Now, what do the Republicans have to do going forward? They need to, number one, kick up the PR times 10. Okay, this needs to be all the time, not just for one event. It's not going to cut it. The Democrats flood the airways, flood the internet with their messaging, with their propaganda. It has to be turned up times 10. Number two, they have to start bridging out into other communities. The black Republicans that spoke last night, the black conservatives, were phenomenal. They really were. And they need to start reaching out into that community, into the other communities for more support. There's been some polling saying that the blacks are supporting Trump at maybe 20% or more now. If that's true, then the election's over already. But we can't bank on that. They have to really go for it. The next is do the same in the Hispanic community. A poll came out the other day right here. President Trump was overseeing the strictest immigration policy of any president in modern political times, and Hispanic community leaders have said that will kill his chances to attract Hispanic voters. Instead, Mr. Trump enters the home stretch of his re-election campaign poised to keep and perhaps even increase his share of the Hispanic vote, according to the latest round of national opinion polls. Mr. Trump polls anywhere from about a quarter of Hispanic vote up to 38% in one survey. On average, he hovers around the low 30s. If he does get 30% of the Hispanic vote, again, election over. What do the Republicans got to do? Start using that. Start going for that, okay? Send your message out in Spanish. Send it out in other languages as well. A lot of times the Hispanic community is relegated to Telemundo, Televisión. Put your message out in Spanish. I know for a fact that the support is there. I have Latinos in my own family. I know it's there. Okay? Next thing is kind of up to us. We have to flood the airwaves and flood the internet with our message. Okay? That's why I always say like, share, subscribe, please. And do the same for many other podcasts, the ones I've mentioned in my other video, all of them. Like, share, and subscribe them all. We have to fight fire with the constant propaganda coming from the left. One more thing, and on a personal note, I want to add, and what I think the Republicans can really do to get a little bit more support is, and stick with me on this real quick, is sit down with the unions. Okay, now Republicans for whatever reason, believe that unions are always evil. Now, I know a lot of unions have gotten ridiculously political, and I could go on about it all day, but unions are necessary. They really are, okay? I've worked a ton of crappy jobs in my life. You can't just expect the free market to create enough good jobs for every good worker out there. You really can't. It will create some. The market will create good jobs, but there won't be enough. I worked too many crappy jobs, and unions really do protect people, especially in things like construction. Like, I can't tell you how bad it can be if you're not a part of a union, or other things like teachers unions, and they've gotten so political, and many unions have become political, but the members will vote Republican. They have. I know many that support Trump already, but also many others feel like they can't because Republicans won't even sit down with unions. They won't even attempt it. Negotiate with them. Don't try to make them go away. Negotiate with them. So I think that will really bring more support from the blue collar section that the Republicans don't already have. Okay, guys? Like, share, subscribe. More coming.